What is up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are going to be going over the newly acquired tight end for the Atlanta Falcons, Hayden Hurst from the Baltimore Ravens, and looking at what his potential fantasy outlook might be in 2020. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button for us to get more videos like this one, and let's get right into it. So looking at Hayden Hurst last year doesn't really do too much good to pay too much attention to his stats. Obviously, Mark Andrews came over and or had basically taken over that tight end one role with the Ravens last year. So Hayden Hurst not involved too much, only 30 receptions, 349 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns on the year. From a week by week standpoint, there was really only 1 week that you would have ever been happy streaming him, and I highly doubt many people did it. So last year was not a very relevant year for Hayden Hurst. So if you owned him in Dynasty, you've counting your lucky stars that he was traded to a team that just lost Austin Hooper, who was heavily targeted in this offense. So, can we expect Hayden Hurst to do some of the same things as Austin Hooper? I think we can. In terms of just pure volume alone, last year Austin Hooper had 97 targets and he had a 25.7 red zone target share, which was fourth in the league behind Kelsey, Higbee, and Kittle. From an athletic profile, these guys are definitely comparable. Hayden Hurst actually had a higher draft capital than Austin Hooper. Hayden Hurst was actually a first round pick by the Ravens a few years back. A lot of people like to remind us that he actually was drafted before Lamar Jackson, which was kind of crazy, but there's definitely some upside here for Hayden Hurst. I don't think he's as talented as Austin Hooper, so we're not projecting him to get the same type of volume that Austin Hooper did, especially with everything that's happening in the offseason right now. It will probably take a little bit longer for Hayden Hurst to get on the same page with Matt Ryan and become the comfort pillow that Austin Hooper was last year. But some other things just to note in the small volume and workload that Hayden Hurst did get in Baltimore, he finished with 11.6 yards per reception, which was 14th, respectable numbers there. Yards per target, 7th in the NFL. He had a 75% catch rate, which was number 11, and quarterback rating when targeted in Baltimore was actually number 8, 117.6. So he was efficient with the small bit of volume that he actually did receive last year in Baltimore. And really, this is just a how much do we expect Hayden Hurst to be able to take from that Austin Hooper role. So I think it's pretty reasonable to expect him to get about 75% of what Austin Hooper got. Again, that's more so to do with there being less preparation time heading into the season. Obviously, Austin Hooper was there for a couple years, so he had taken some time to develop rapport with Matt Ryan. And while Austin Hooper had some decent games before last year was truly a breakout season for him and was heavily involved. Now, it is important to note again for the Falcons, as we said in some of our other videos, that there's really not a lot of depth behind the starters here. So if something were to happen to Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley or Todd Gurley, Hayden Hurst would definitely be the beneficiary there and would be expected to see a lot more volume in this passing game. So there's definitely upside to Hayden Hurst, and he's not incredibly expensive in drafts right now. I think he's actually being drafted outside of the top 12 tight ends in most leagues right now. So you can take a shot on a guy like Hayden Hurst later in your draft, shore up all the other positions first. Take a guy like Hayden Hurst and then another potential breakout guy a round or two later is probably going to end up being the optimal strategy for tight ends this year. If you don't grab Kelsey or Kittle, taking two tight ends later and hoping that one of them hits is probably going to be a pretty smart strategy. So we have him projected pretty close to what we consider his floor: 57 receptions, 634 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. That would put him at about 147 fantasy points. Put him pretty close to that low end tight end 1, high end tight end 2, a guy that you're probably more exciting if you're streaming rather than having to start every single week. But as we mentioned, definitely carries plenty of upside if something goes south for the Falcons and his target total by nature has to go up. Then he would definitely be a guy to see some fantasy positive regression due to that increased volume. So definitely one of the harder guys to project this year. I think it's definitely worth taking a shot on Hayden Hurst at his cost right now. Not someone that I'm going out of my way to draft, not someone I'm reaching for by any means, because again, Austin Hooper had kind of an anomaly year last year. Yes, Matt Ryan historically has targeted tight ends, but it hasn't been like a massive fantasy producing position every single year. Honestly, a lot of people just remember what Matt Ryan did with Tony Gonzalez, and Tony Gonzalez is a Hall of Fame tight end, so that's something you have to take into consideration. Austin Hooper had one really good year with Matt Ryan, so I'm not expecting Hayden Hurst to basically copy and paste what Austin Hooper did last year, but the upside is definitely there for him to come closer to that type of ceiling, especially if someone goes down ahead of him. So again, basically to recap, I think he's worth the price that he's paying right now. Don't reach for him, and if you do take Hayden Hurst, take another tight end around him just in case things don't pan out. You can quickly move on, and you already have someone else to pivot off to. But I do think there's definitely some upside there. So when you're in those later rounds, you're always looking for upside, and Hayden Hurst definitely carries that for you. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll continue breaking down players team by team. Let me know if there's anyone else you want me to go over for Atlanta, and we'll see you guys in the next video.